Hey ANPers, this is Dr. Jones checking in. This is ANP1 lecture test 4, video 16, covering page 17. So this is the end of chapter 10. Now, sometimes chapter 11 is on test 4, and sometimes it's an extra credit quiz. So you will have to check with me to see if you need to study chapter 11 for the test and therefore the final, or if they're not on the test and therefore the final and there is an extra credit quiz. So okay, so we have talked in great detail about skeletal muscle. Now let's talk about cardiac muscle and smooth muscle. So let's talk first about cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle looks like this, and it has these intercalated discs at the end of the cardiac muscle cells. And they're the sarcolemmas of the two cardiac muscle cells connected, and there are gaps in the intercalated discs that allow the ions that are the action potential, to travel directly from cell to cell. And also the myofibrils are connected to it, so all the myofibrils are connected, which gives it added strength. So the heart, as you may know, is a pump, and it pumps blood. What you may not know is that it has to pump the blood up when you're upright. It has to pump the blood straight up to get it out of the heart. And so it's very important that that bottom half of the pump pumps from the bottom up, and how we coordinate that is with these intercalated discs that allow the action potential to travel from cell to cell so that you get a nice coordinated beat, because if it's just fluttering, if you get ventricular fibrillation, you're not pumping the blood. And if you're not pumping against gravity, then you're not getting blood to the brain and the extremities. So bad things happen. Lips turn blue. That happens. Okay, so now let's talk about smooth muscle. And we'll talk more about cardiac muscle when we get to cardiovascular next semester. So let's talk about smooth muscle. Cardiac muscle, and we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so smooth muscle, cardiac muscle is found where? In the heart. Smooth muscle is found where? It is found in the tubes. I won't quite say lining the tubes, because the lining, the inner lining, is actually an epithelium, but in the walls of almost all the tubes. So yeah, most of the tubes. So in all of these systems, we're going to cover where we find smooth muscle tissue, and the first one is always going to be around the blood vessels. The capillaries are the smallest blood vessels, and they don't have smooth muscle around the smallest capillaries, but most of the rest of the blood vessels do. So okay, so in the integumentary system, in the skin, you find smooth muscles around the blood vessel, and also the erector pili muscles that make the goosebumps that we talked about are smooth muscle, which we did discuss. Cardiovascular system, you're going to have them around the blood vessels, and they're very important. Did we cover the words vasoconstriction and vasodilation? I think we did, but let me write those down for you. Constriction. It still weirds me out that TION says shun. Really? Shun? Same with CION. Shun. Okay, so constriction is when you make the diameter smaller. And vas means vessel, so this is when you make the diameter of the vessel smaller. The opposite is vasodilation. I missed the O. Oh, so that's a caret. The caret means that I'm adding a letter. we haven't done editing marks yet. Sean. Vasodilation is when the diameter of the blood vessel gets larger. And we'll talk more about that next semester. Let's talk about editing marks. So let's say skeletal. So I have misspelled the word skeletal. So to show that we don't need this letter, we make this loop-de mark, which means delete. This is a caret, and that means add. So this is delete, and this is add. SP with an exclamation mark, SP with a question mark means spelling. Your spelling is off. If you triple underline a letter, that means that it should have been capitalized. And where's some other editing marks? Oh, skeletal. Let's say you forget the space. The editing mark for space is a hashtag, £, sharp sign, depending. So, I know. One more. If the words are, or letters, are in the wrong order, then you make this little swoopty, which means switch. So those are a few of the basic editing signs. If I were hand grading your lab tests on paper, you would know all about these because they would be all over your lab papers when you get them back. That happens. Okay, so this, no, we're still going. Oh, we're not done. Okay. Cardiovascular, around the blood vessels, vasoconstriction and vasodilation, and this helps control the blood flow. So vasoconstriction decreases blood flow, vasodilation increases blood flow. So if you're a blusher, do you blush when you get embarrassed? That's vasodilation and the blood vessels of your face, because they dilate, allowing more blood, and you can see more of the blood through the surface of the skin, making your skin turn red. It's also why you turn red when you've got a sunburn. It's vasodilation. It's blood flow to the area, swelling. Yeah, that hurts. Okay, so the respiratory system, we've got around the blood vessels and around the bronchioles. And we will have the same thing when the blood vessels in the bronchial walls constrict. You get bronchoconstriction, which decreases airflow. And when they get bigger, when they increase in diameter, that's bronchodilation, which increases airflow. Digestive, around the blood vessels and in the walls of the digestive tract, the entire digestive tract. There are 2 layers of smooth muscles in the wall. The stomach, because it churns, mechanically digests the food, it has a bonus 3rd layer. There's more detail, but next semester we'll cover all of that, I promise. And urinary, around the blood vessels and in the tubes, the ureters, the urinary bladder. And then reproductive, around the blood vessels. In men, you have them in the tubes, in the glands. They help to move the sperm and the secretion. And in women, they're in the uterine tubes and the uterus to help to move the eggs and the sperm and to give birth. So that's a thing. Smooth muscle. All right, and then we have a chart. I don't have a copy of the chart. Okay. So the chart, I'm going to go down the chart. I'm going down the chart. Usually I let y'all choose if I'm going down or across, and so it's weird to just arbitrarily decide because usually y'all are in charge of that. It's not a democracy, but when I don't care either way, y'all usually vote. So, all right, skeletal muscle. The shape is elongated, long and skinny like a pool noodle. Nucleus, you can go two ways with this. You can say multiple peripheral, or you can use the one word multinucleate. Striated, yes, because sarcomeres. Voluntary, yes. Location, attached to the skeleton, mostly. If there's a rule, there's an exception. Generally. There are exceptions to the exception rule. That's awesome. All right, so cardiac is branched. You can see here this one is branched. The nucleus, a single central nucleus, although the new version of the book promises no more than 5. Slightly multinucleate. Few of them. No more than 5. Striated, yes, and for the same reason. Sarcomeres. A bands, I bands, same difference. Voluntary, no. Thank goodness, right? Because otherwise you'd fall asleep and your heart would quit beating. That would suck. Location is the heart. And smooth muscle, the shape is spindle shaped. This is a spindle shaped. This is what this, they're actually about 10 times longer and skinnier than this. And they have a single central nucleus, but for reals, actually just a single central nucleus. We can go with the one word uninucleate, uni meaning one, like a unicycle. My son wants a unicycle. Okay, so striations, no. There are no sarcomeres. But look, they have actin, they have myosin. It's just in this meshy thing where it like, yeah, no sarcomeres, no striations. Completely different. Okay, and the location, as discussed. So there you go. This has been A&P 1, lecture test 4. Video 16 covering page 17, and that was all of chapter 10. Thank you as always for tuning in. The education must go on. Oh, if you're not doing the chapter 11, there's my puppy, Pepper the Pupper. I just wanted to show you the picture. Yeah, actually, usually my pictures at the end of the PowerPoints are pictures that I have taken, but this picture my husband took. It's just too adorable to not share. That was the spring back when we had blue bonnets. Still COVID times though. They're lasting forever. So, general rule, when there's a pandemic going on, global pandemic no less, stay home if you can, and wear a mask if you can't, and wash your hands. Don't touch your mucous membranes. Stay home, wear a mask, wash your hands, and don't touch your face if you can help it. Like if you've washed your hands and you haven't left the house, that's okay. All right. And always stay up to date on where the hot spots are. So stay safe. Dr. J out.